Hello. Today I'm going to show you how to draw spheres in SketchUp that give you a decent and not too big a file size. So the first step in drawing a sphere is to draw a vertical line. We're going to pick a line that's 100 inches long. And the reason for picking a large number is that there's a defect within SketchUp. It will not handle small geometry with the follow me command, like less than, say, an inch or two. So what you have to do is scale up whatever you want to use the follow me command. Scale it up to 5 times or 10 times actual size. Do your follow me command. When you're done, you scale it back down to the size you want. It's just a known defect within the SketchUp program. Okay, so now we're going to draw a dummy cube. The reason we do that is we want to get the right plane where we draw our circles. Let's draw our first circle. I'm going to hold the shift key down on that face. Go to the center of that line, drawing a circle with a 50-inch radius. Now we extend that line up. Doesn't really matter how far. We can get rid of the left half of that bottom circle. This will become our sphere eventually. Now we need to draw another circle at the top. So we'll select the blue face, hold down the shift key. Doesn't really matter how big the circle is. Now here's the key part which determines how you draw your sphere so you end up with a relatively small file size. Let's go click on the outside of the top circle and then right click and do Entity Info. We can see that by default there's 180 segments in that circle. That's way too many to get a small file size. So I found that about 25 works pretty good. And then I click on radius, which basically enters that 25 segments. I click on the outside of the bottom half circle. Default is 90 segments, again way too high. We pick 25. Click the radius that enters it. Now we're ready to do the follow me command, so we click on the outside of the top circle, which is the path for it to follow. We click on follow me. We go over and click on the area of the bottom half circle, and presto, we've got a sphere. Now we can get rid of that dummy box that we had. We don't need it. We can get rid of that top circle. We don't need it anymore. I do leave the vertical piece because that's the center of the sphere and it helps me locate the sphere within whatever model I'm using it in. Let's go ahead and make this a group. Right click and make group. Okay, now we have our sphere, but remember this is relatively large because it has a 100-inch diameter. Let's say that we want a 2-inch diameter ball, so that's a 50-to-1 reduction. So we need to scale this down by 1 over 50, which is 0.02. So we do Tools, Scale. We do down to 0.02. Scaled it down to 2-inch. We zoom extents. We now have a 2-inch ball with a relatively small file size. I ran an experiment in SketchUp where I varied the amount of segments in that semicircle and circle that we talked about. Started down at 25, which seems to work for a couple inch type spheres that I work with. But anyway, if you only have 25 segments, your file size is only 111 kilobytes, relatively small. You can see as that number increases up to 200 segments in each of those, wow, you get almost 8 megabytes or 7,896 kilobytes. It took my computer about 15 minutes when I did the follow me command to actually generate that sphere. So this illustrates what a huge impact that number of segments has when you make your sphere. Using that same experimental data that we just looked at, I graphed that, and just to give you an indication of how rapidly that file size increases as you increase the number of segments. It basically goes up by the square root, by the square of the number of segments. So if you want to keep your file size down and SketchUp very responsive, you want to keep that number of segments down on the lower end.